Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Jacob Williams. So in the final of these videos, I'm going to show you how to do the two different kinds of writing that you have to do in the language papers, which are creative writing and persuasive writing. So we're going to start with creative writing, and we're going to begin by looking at a few mistakes that most students make so that you can avoid them. Now, the first mistake is moving between tenses for no reason. So students might just randomly go between the present and the past, and of course we want to avoid that. The second mistake is explaining rather than describing. So the marks are not only for the quality of the narrative and the structure that you use, they're also for the description, and that of course means words and language that you use to describe people, places, things that are happening in your story. Now, to describe, you're going to be using most of your time and energy describing, not explaining. So if you have a long, complicated story with loads of things that happen, you might not have enough time to do description. If you have a story where you have to do a lot of explanation of what's even going on so the reader can understand it, then again, that's not going to work, which is why things like fantasy or science fiction don't work in GCSE creative writing, because you have to go on about the backstory, explain what's going on to the reader before they can understand the story, and you don't have then enough time to do the description where you really get the marks. So we simply want to focus on not telling the reader about background information, but showing the reader what something is like by describing it. The third mistake is using paragraphs just in a simple and logical way. Now, you actually specifically get marks in the mark scheme for using creative paragraph structures, like a one-sentence paragraph or even a one-word paragraph, to create dramatic impact. And that's also pretty easy to do. You're leaving marks on the table if you don't do it. Number 4 is ignoring the tone or style of your writing. So, tone is like the attitude that is shown by how you're writing the text. Is it sarcastic? Is it humorous? Is it optimistic? Whatever. Style is your method of writing, like how complex, how formal, how modern, what kind of vocabulary you choose. Just have a consistent one and stick to it. So your narrator, which could be you or it could be another character, speaks in a certain way, and that's reflected in the tone and style, and just stick to that tone and style. And don't randomly switch between being formal and being casual, or being sarcastic and being very serious. It doesn't make sense, and it's confusing for the reader. And finally, using only simple punctuation. So sometimes students will just stick to the basics. They don't want to make any mistakes. They're worried about getting it wrong, so they just use full stops, capital letters, commas, just the simple stuff. Doesn't work though, because you actually get more marks for trying more complex punctuation, and making 1 or 2 mistakes will not lose you any marks, but missing out complex punctuation will, so definitely practice and try it. So semicolons are used to join together two parts of a sentence that could make sense on their own, which are called independent clauses, like this. Both of these could be sentences on their own, so we use a semicolon. If you put in the word and, then they could not be, because this, you can't really have this on its own, just with the word and, so we use a comma. But in this first one, they do not make sense. They do make sense on their own. You could write either of them as a sentence on its own, therefore it's a semicolon. In the second one, that's not the case, so it's a comma. That's why we use semicolons. Also, in a list, if it's a very long list and the items in the list have got commas in the side of them, that's another place you'd use it, but this is the main one. And then colons are not only before a list, they're also used before an explanation or a definition, like in this example, because this part of the sentence is an explanation of this part. You can also use a hyphen is one line, which joins together two words. A dash is longer, and you join random or unrelated things together. An ellipsis is the 3 dots used to show a long pause. Now, the main problem that most students face in creative writing is thinking of ideas, but in reality that's not what's going on. We have hundreds of ideas every second, we just don't have confidence that we can actually use them. The real issue is lacking confidence in those ideas. Now, I believe the best way to have confidence is to have a structure that you follow. You do not need to be creative or imaginative to do this. So a very simple structure that you can follow is a beginning, middle, and end. A better structure, if you're aiming for grade 7 or above, is 5 parts. Exposition, which is like an introduction and background. Inciting incident, which is the trigger that starts the action. The build-up, when the action's increasing. The climax is like the peak of the action. or the big problem they've got to solve, and the resolution is the outcome. So what was the end result? What happened? Did they solve the problem or not? That's the resolution. Now remember, a story is like climbing a mountain. Okay, you're walking on the ground, then you go up, that's the inciting incident, you reach the peak, that's the climax, you go back down again, that's the resolution. So the action rises, then it falls again. And you need some kind of problem in a story, otherwise you haven't got a story, you haven't got a plot. You need a problem in order for there to be a climax. Now the problem may be solved or it may not be. There may be a happy ending or a sad one, but either way you need some kind of problem. So the length that you need minimum 6 full-length paragraphs, which when I say full length, I mean 4 to 6 sentences, and if you can, write even more than that. So you won't get a good mark, like a grade 7 or above, if you only write 2 or 3 paragraphs. You've got to write a decent amount to get a high grade for this. So the 5 parts, exposition. Now this is not just explaining, it's describing, so you're going to give descriptions of the characters, the plot, and the setting. And the same goes for the trigger. The action becomes more intense, we reach a peak. This is when the biggest event takes place, it's the exciting part. And then we end it. This is really important. Many students miss this. Many students miss out the ending and they don't end the story in a way that is satisfying. And then the reader doesn't understand exactly why it was important or what the outcome was, so make sure you don't miss that part out. Okay, so a few more things you can do just to make your story more interesting at the beginning. I'm not going to mention every single one, but you could actually start with the inciting incident and then go back to the background later. So you don't have to always do it in that order. You can mix up the order to make the structure more interesting. You could open with dialogue. Now this might set you apart because often students mix up dialogue. Dialogue's very powerful because it shows personality. Here are 3 ways of saying the same thing. You can see that each of them shows a different personality or tone or attitude. And also at the ending, you can use interesting structural techniques. So you could go back to the beginning, make it like a circle. You could have a twist or surprise at the end, or you could have a summary. The narrator kind of explained everything that's happened, summarizes it. So in planning, what you need to do is begin, just write down the overall plot, a couple of sentences, make it very short, and then you number the 5 parts. So remember those 5 stages, you write them down and you put a number and the order they're going to appear, because you don't always start with the background. One more tip I'm going to suggest to you now. To kind of cheat the exam, you can memorize descriptive passages in advance, but not just one, because you might have to write in different moods or about different topics. Memorize 3 or 4, and you'll almost certainly be able to use one. This would just be one paragraph you'd put in that is mainly description. Now, would you just use it word for word in the exam? No. You need to change a few things, especially at the beginning and the end, so it doesn't feel like it's been randomly dropped in there and it's actually connected to the rest of the story. But you can memorize some description, so you always ensure you've got some really excellent descriptive language in your writing. Okay, let's talk about persuasive writing. This is what you do at the end of language paper 2. Now, there are many persuasive writing techniques or rhetorical techniques. Rhetorical means persuasive, and they're grouped into 3 categories. So pathos is emotion. This would include, of course, emotive language, but also descriptive language, direct address when you speak to the reader and say you, rhetorical questions, and flattery when you say how great the reader is to try to influence them. Logos is logical reasons, which is facts, or statistics, which are just facts with numbers, or logical arguments, where you explain logically why something makes sense. And then ethos is your own credibility. Why should they even listen to you? You could tell a story, that's an anecdote, you could use a real-life example about your own life, you could adopt a persona when you pretend to be someone you're not, pretend to be a teacher or an expert or whatever, to give yourself more credibility. So we call this together the rhetorical triangle of ethos, logos, and pathos, and you would do it in this order. So you start with this, ethos, because if they don't trust you and listen to you, the rest of it is going to fall on deaf ears. Then you would talk mainly about logos and the logical reasons they should agree with your view. Then you would do the emotional appeal to make them actually care. It's not enough they agree, they've got to care and want to do something about it. So now, you would use others, so it's not like you only use ethos in the first 2 paragraphs, you do mix them up, but you prioritize it, you focus mainly on it. Conclusions, introductions are not so important. You could have a short conclusion where you repeat your main point in an impactful way, maybe just a sentence stating it again in a really powerful way. So, the best answers, this is directly from the examiner's reports, the best answers look for a clear point of view, so it's unmistakable what your opinion is, a coherent series of points to support a central argument. So you need one underlying argument, one underlying big reason, and then a series of small reasons, which are your coherent series of points, which are connected together. So they're coherent, they're linked together. They're not random different things. The different topics you talk about are linked. So some of the ways you can create a coherent argument would be stating your viewpoint super clearly at the beginning, just incredibly clearly, directly, unmistakably. Making sure each paragraph has a focus, so using a topic sentence to introduce a certain topic in each paragraph. Using repetition sometimes, so you could kind of link back to things you said before, repeat them in different ways. Using connectives, so linking together your paragraphs by saying, for example, another way in which this works is, or on the other hand, some people might think this, so then you're showing their connections between the paragraphs, they're not just random and disconnected. And using counter-arguments, so mentioning what the other side would say and then countering it. So you don't just say, you don't make it balanced, it should not be balanced, and I want to really emphasize that. I see a lot of work where students write balanced arguments. No, absolutely not. However, if you think of what the other side would say and say why it's wrong, that's better than just ignoring it, because the reader's probably thinking of it anyway. So you might say, well, I know that some people might believe this, but I believe this because, and they're wrong because, and that's much more effective than just actually ignoring that. Okay, and then you could return back to your opening statement at the end and link it back again. Yeah, now to create your own voice, your own style or tone, a few things you could do. So you could use certain types of vocabulary. You could use puns even, so like jokes that are plays on words. You could use examples that fit the character or the personality you're trying to show in your writing. You could use exaggeration. You could make fun of somebody. You could use intense passion, humor, or sarcasm. Probably not all at the same time, because they don't always fit together, but in different places. And you could also use different perspectives. So you could write from the perspective of a certain person. That's called adopting a persona, when you pretend to be someone and write from their perspective. Okay, one more thing. For planning answers, it's good to be aware of the topics that may come up for persuasive writing. I've made a list of them here. The most popular is education. That's number 4 in the bullet points there. So is education working? Is it too strict or not strict enough? Is it too easy, too hard? Other popular topics might include health. Things like body image are quite topical. Sport has come up in the past. The media, especially social media, is it good or bad? Technology would also link into that. The impact of mobile phones, computers, etc. So these are more popular. The other topics like generation, self-improvement, government, crime, probably less likely to come up, but they could do. So the way to revise this is to think about these topics, research them, think about your opinion, look at what people on both sides actually say, practice thinking of arguments. Now, will you do research? Will you look stuff up in the exam? Of course not. But if you know about it already, and if you've thought about it before, and you've read about it before, you're in a much stronger position than students who've never thought about this topic, and then it comes up, they've got to write about it. So if you have an opinion already, if you've done your research in the past, it's so much easier to think of arguments when you go into the exam. So, one more thing. Okay, finally, a tip you can use to find quick rhetorical techniques, persuasive techniques to use is DeForest. So it stands for direct address, alliteration, facts, opinions, repetition, emotive language, statistics, and triples, or the rule of 3, where you repeat the same thing in 3 different ways. Like Julius Caesar, when he came to Britain, said, I came, I saw, I conquered. That's a rule of 3, 3 ideas linked together. So all of these are powerful techniques, and you can write that down, write down DeForest when you start doing a piece of persuasive writing, and then tick off each letter when you've used it. Don't plan exactly what it's going to be. Don't write down. Don't spend ages thinking, what alliteration am I going to use? Where am I going to use it? Just do it when it seems natural. You'll get better at it with practice. Tick it off once you've done it. And can you do it again later? Of course. This is a minimum. If you use each one of these once, you've at least got some techniques in your writing. It's a bare minimum to use each one of these once. And can you use techniques that are not in DeForest? Of course you can. But these are some of the most important. Okay, that's everything I want to show you, but I also want you to know that if you finish here, then your learning stops here. But if you actually found this helpful and you want to continue learning and make further progress, then we have an opportunity where you can do that, because all of these resources are actually from a program that I run, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about it and how I can actually help you to stop stressing out on your own and start actually achieving the grades you deserve by working with me and getting the help that you need. So what we do inside of our program is we have got a 3-step method. So first of all, we make sure that students actually have the motivation and inspiration that they need to succeed. And that is why many of my students have actually gone up by sometimes 3 or 4 or even more grades. And some students have been able to go from like a grade 5 or 6 to a grade 9 in the space of a few months. And so through the kind of teaching methods that you've seen, hopefully you can see how this will allow you to actually reach a grade 8 or 9 as well. And what we then do is I ensure that we have a structure to follow so that students know exactly what to revise and when, and that is so that they gain the clarity on what they need to study, so that students actually know that it's not just random and you can revise English. It is possible. There are certain methods that you can use, and some work better than others, and by practicing you get better at revising until it becomes easy and natural and something you do, just like brushing your teeth. And when you get there, that's when it becomes easy. That's when you actually get better results without even studying more hours, because you're just doing it in a more effective way using the best methods. And so if you do that, that is how you actually get to a grade 8 or 9, boost your grades, and eventually, because you do that, what you can do is then you'll have so many more opportunities in the future when it comes to sixth form, university, jobs, just because you're in that top 5% of students who get a grade 9. So it's so essential for you later in life. That's why you actually need to get this help and not just be trying to figure it out on your own and getting stuck. Now, the third thing that I do is give students a strategy of exactly how to master the exam technique, because that's the biggest thing in English, exam technique. It's not enough to have the knowledge, it's essential to know exactly how they mark each question so you can think like an examiner, implement precisely what they're looking for. So we also focus continually on that. So that is why many students have been able to get some incredible results. So Nathaniel went up by 6 grades in literature, as you can see. Aravind actually went from a grade 3 to a grade 8 over the course of a year. Abdurrahman went from 4 to 8 in just 3 months. Amira, in about 4 months, went from a grade 5 to a grade 9. There are many others as well. And the reason that I'm so passionate about what these students have done is just that I used to be a teacher. And then when I started tutoring full-time, which I've been doing for the last 5 years, I realized I was able to help so many more students this way and actually help students to achieve their dreams in a way that they couldn't in school for whatever reason. And if you're watching this, it's quite likely that you have also found that for whatever reason the school are not providing the kind of detailed feedback that you need. So that is why inside of the program I always give every student individually a video each week where I go through their work on the screen and show them precisely how to improve, so you have that detailed guidance. Now you're probably wondering, how does all of this work? How do we join? So inside of the program, it includes 2 weekly online group lessons. So I mentioned the motivation and inspiration that students need. That's why we do this in a group. I found it is more effective in English to have a group, because you gain ideas, perspectives. There isn't just one right answer in English, so having that team behind you is essential. There's also an optional weekly question and answer session. Now, as for the times of the lessons, there are 2 options, and once you've signed up, you will choose one of them. I'll give you a call to confirm. You get a weekly homework assignment and individual video feedback. It's where I go through your work and show you how to improve. You get over 100 hours of pre-recorded lessons and model answers. You get access to our student forum, so you can ask questions any time of day. And you get an initial one-to-one planning session with me to map out your goals and targets for the year if you go for one of our better packages. And we also have a 3-month grade boosting guarantee, because this method has worked for hundreds of students, over 350 students just in the last year. That's why I'm confident that if your son or daughter does the work, they will get results. So if they don't improve in 3 months and they've been coming to all the lessons and doing all the homework, I simply personally refund every penny that you've paid, so that you have that guarantee, you have that confidence this is going to work, as long as you do your side of the bargain and put in the work as well. So we've got 3 options of how to actually join. We have got our starter package, which is $150 a month. It's a minimum 3-month program, because there's no point doing it for 1 month. There's no risk, as I said, and doing it for 1 month, you wouldn't get results, just like going to the gym for 1 month, you're not going to make a permanent change. The Success package is the most popular, £350 every 3 months. Now, most students stay with me for an academic year, so there might be 9 months from September to May, for example, but you can join at any time of year. And this is the most popular option. You're saving over 300 over the year because it's 450 for 3 months with the starter package. The Super package is for the whole year, £900 for 9 months. So that's how it all works. In a couple of questions that you might have. So we work with all students from year 8 to 11 in different groups, different ability levels. It covers language and literature. All the topics in both are covered over the course of the year. And the general approach I take is that English is skills-based, as you've seen from these videos. So what you learn in one area will carry over into others. It's also possible to join at any point, so if you want to actually begin the lessons later, you can still take action now and join. And today, there is actually a discount available, 25% if you watch this video, so that's available until midnight tonight on this page. So the prices you just saw up there represent a 25% discount on the normal price. So currently, our discounted price for the most popular package is $350, but that will go up at midnight. So you will lock in that discount if you take action, and then you will be able to join and actually start the classes later. And the classes are run on Zoom, so I teach these live. You do not have to be on camera. You will interact using the chat, and there's also a separate Q&A area for questions, so I can answer your questions easily. If the group ever becomes large, I simply have more tutors helping me out in the group by answering students' questions. And we cover all the exam boards and all the literature texts, so I've got a huge number of resources on all of these. So, I think that's everything. And now, if you did want to help with other subjects, we have a special discount for maths and science. So, once you've signed up, you can give me a call, and I'll give you a call anyway if you don't, and we'll be able to discuss that too. Hope to see you there, and I hope that you take action and that you actually implement the methods we've been learning. So I hope you can see how learning in this way, using these steps, is going to help you to achieve the grade you want, to achieve the lifetime benefits of actually getting to a higher grade, getting to a grade 8 or 9, so you can benefit during your university, during your work, during your whole life, essentially for the price of about a supermarket lunch every day, about £4 a day. So I think that it is excellent value, and I hope that you agree that the result you'll get will be worth it, because we do have that guarantee and security, and that you'll be confident that you will actually gain that confidence by doing this, and by learning with me, you'll be able to become more confident in your own ability to communicate, to express yourself, and to write in any situation or context where you have to do that, which is what English is all about. So, we'll see you soon, and if you don't choose to do this, then your journey stops here, and if you do, I will see you on the other side, and look forward to working with you to help you achieve your goals and dreams.